You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everyone. It's Monday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 11 o'clock Mountain.
That's correct.
And this, is that correct? Is Global Trade This Week. I'm Pete Mento. With me, as always, is my great buddy, Doug Draper, the Superman to my Batman, the Wolverine to my Cyclops. Actually, probably more the other way around. He's got far too much class for that.
Yeah.
And we're brought to you by our good friends at Cap Logistics. I'm coming to you live from stately Trig Geek Manor. And I'll just came back from New Orleans. I'll be heading back in a few hours. More on that later. There's a sign behind Doug, which means that he has some sort of sight gag he'll be playing into later, which I'm sure will be coupled with some dad jokes, which will at least make me laugh. I've got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
And so Doug, what's going on?
Oh, just had a fun weekend. Things are rocking and rolling. The 25, it's no gag. There's no gag to it. That's just the total medal count from our beloved America. I think we got fifth as far as medal count. It's funny that nobody cares about individual accomplishments. It's how many gosh darn medals did we win and how did we stack up against the rest of the world. So there you go. Only in America.
Yeah, I had to figure out why the Republic of China had so many medals until I realized that was Russia. So, or whatever countries makes up that ROC, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest, Doug, I didn't get into the Winter Olympics as much as I normally would this year. I don't know if it's because the NHL wasn't involved in it or what, but I wasn't as glued to the set as I had been in previous Olympics.
No curling. Did you see any curling? They got the silver.
I did. I love the curling. Yeah, I watched plenty of that.
Yes.
But we can get all of that later on, I suppose.
Yeah.
Doug, I the coin flip was done. You won the coin flip, and you elected to receive, which means you will have the first topic of this week.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Pete. First topic is something I saw on the news. I think it was maybe a week ago on Valentine's Day. It is the California Air and Resource Board, CARB, C-A-R-B, and there is some regulations that are kicking in at the end of this year, which are kind of flying low under the radar. This is the first I'd really heard about it, but then I kind of gave me pause related to its implications. So essentially what this is saying is that by the end of the year, if you're operating any equipment and trucks in California, by the end of the year, they have to be 2010 model year or newer diesel engines, right? So you can either buy some new trucks, relatively new, refurbish or whatever it is. But unless you got some motor in that bad boy that's 2010 or newer, you will not be compliant with the new regulations. So the two things that popped in my mind on that one, Pete. Number one is the electronic logs, which were rolled out a couple of years ago. And what that did is it took capacity out of the market because there was a lot of mom and pops and smaller guys and John Wayne's, the Wild West of the trucking industry that said, listen, I'm done. I'm getting overregulated. I can't do this. So there was a lot of smaller companies that just folded up shop and went to retirement. Or they folded up shop and went to work for a larger trucking company and just got out of the whole regulation racket altogether. So there are a lot of small businesses in the drayage community around those ports in California. And I have a sneaking suspicion that if this regulation is not pushed back and really goes into effect on the 31st of December, that you're going to see a lot of smaller mom and pops dropping out of business. And that is a key component of a connector that moves containers out of the port into their transition to moved inland. So the other piece is that when you did electronic logs, that's getting some equipment that you hook onto your truck and do that thing. So there is some capital outlay, but not as much. We're talking about new trucks. And when you have this regulation going out there, the price of used vehicles, as you know, whether it's the Ford Bronco that you want to get or anything else, used equipment is skyrocketed. It doesn't matter if it's power, trailers, whatever it may be. So not only are a lot of these guys mom and pops and smaller operations the cost to be compliant is going to be astronomically high, which is the reason I believe that there's going to be a capacity crunch even more so than it is now, because those companies are just going to be like, it's not worth it. I was close to retirement, and I'm going to eject. So it's just another example of unintended consequences of how regulations are out there that we may not understand the implications. And then number two, just going to validate the things that you and I have been talking about, that this supply chain bottleneck and the things that are happening at our ports, at our inlands, at our warehouses is not going away anytime soon. This is going to be pushing into 2023. So anyway, the CARB rule in California is just another example of how our supply chain is just not getting a break. It's going to continue to be chaotic.
Yeah, when I read this one, we've been following this pretty closely. The whole industry has, and when you talk about the damnation of unintended consequences, this one in particular, I can understand where the hope is that momentum will start in the West Coast and LA and sort of spread out to the rest of the country, right? Because if you're going to send a tractor trailer into LA to get this stuff, it's going to have to be compliant. So you might as well start modernizing your fleet. And the reality is precisely what you just talked about. Is the state of California going to start financing trucks for everybody else? That's highly unlikely. Is the state of California going to convince the federal government to come up with some kind of a tax credit to let these people modernize their trucks? Again, highly unlikely. I think that there are a number of programs that are currently available, but it's not going to do you any good if you can't get a hold of the equipment to do it. You can't get a hold of those trucks. And right now, the backlog on everything practically is positively ridiculous. Good luck finding parts right now, as an example, for the trucks that we already have. I'm really nervous that what we're seeing right now is an attempt to use legislation wherever we can to change the attitudes of businesses that are already working so hard to be compliant environmentally, because it's the best benefit of their business, because it's what consumers expect. Consumers already expect that I know our company certainly does, that the people that we do business are making as light an impact on the environment around them as they possibly can. And that our customers are expecting that as well. And that people are already paying a premium for it. If you push it too hard, the backlash could be pretty incredible. The second thing I wanted to add to that is, rather than being so concerned about overly regulating the environmental impact of these cars, I wish that they would put just as much time and energy and effort into trying to find more drivers. Imagine if we cared half as much about actually dealing with the environmental impact of all of those ships that are dead sailing, going back and forth, not at anchor, just throwing fluorocarbons up into the atmosphere because they have no place to actually dock, as we did about these trucks that drive and the impact that they have. Imagine what it means to the seas and the oceans to have the world's single largest moving machines with no place to go because of our backups that we have. Deal with that infrastructure, and then I guess we get to the trucks. I don't know why we're trying to deal with probably the hardest thing to deal with that's going to have the lowest impact. When the easiest things to deal with that'll have the biggest impact are sitting right in front of us.
Yeah, valid. All right, Pete, flip the coin. Back at you, man. What's your first topic for today?
You're trying to stop me before I get
That's exactly right.
So when we did our prediction special, buddy, I think one of my big predictions was that a major freight forwarder was going to get hit by a cyber attack this year. And boy, it didn't take long for that to happen. Reports came out today that Expeditors International of Washington was hit with a targeted cyber attack on the 20th. And for those that are listening to the recording, that would have been yesterday, Sunday, the 20th of February. They made a statement, as they are apparently were advised to, letting people know that they were hit with it, that they're dealing with it, they're managing it, and that it could have an effect on their forward-looking financial reporting. So that's the responsible thing you do when you're a publicly traded company. You make that announcement. What I will say about this, first of all, is Expeditors is one of those companies that's pretty well renowned for security and oversight. And there's a lot of people that are looking forward to taking their victory lap, spiking the ball on this. And I would say unto them, not only should they not be throwing rocks in glass houses, this is more of a warning sign to all of us. If a company that takes this type of security this seriously could be the victim, I don't think there are too many companies that, honestly, anywhere in supply chain, should not be feeling threatened. knowing that company as well as I do and the people that work there, I would say that being forever vigilant and being nervous about this sort of thing is just a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
That level of paranoia is a way of life, given their roster of clients and the things that they do. So if they could be the victim of this, anyone could. And you want to talk about a high profile one.
Mm-hmm.
If this isn't enough to get you up and running after it, I don't know what's going to be. This industry needs to change. And I don't know how many different companies have to fall victim before something big happens. EI being EI, they've got plans on top of plans on top of plans. I'm sure when they found this, they dealt with it pretty swiftly, and it's probably not going to take long for them to manage it. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But given their penchant for planning, I'm sure they're probably already over this and moving along just fine.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of other companies, if this were the case, Doug, they'd be down on their knees for weeks. So this might be the last warning we get.
Yeah. Well, I think two things on that. One, you nailed it with if Expeditors could be taken down and be hacked, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people. That's kind of, I don't want to say the gold standard. I don't know many people at Expeditors, but they definitely have a stellar reputation in the market. And if they can, be susceptible to this, like you said, it could be anybody. The one thing that struck me in looking at their press release is that one of the things that they said that you normally don't hear out of the gate with the cyber attack, at least I have not seen with the ones that you and I have talked about, is that they said, we're incurring expenses. I'm reading this here that I pulled it up. We're incurring expenses related to the cyber attack to investigate and remedy this matter. I've never heard companies say we're throwing money at the problem. Obviously, that's implied, but to lead a statement like that, to say we're throwing in money to get this fixed. And then the second statement was, depending on the length of the shutdown and our operations, yada, 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 it could have material adverse impact on our business revenues and operating results. So to me, that means this thing's a little bit bigger than they may know about. If all of a sudden they're talking about the amount of money they're throwing at the problem, and also that this could impact their financial statements since it's only in February. So I think this thing's a little bit bigger than just a backstory page on here's another cyber attack.
Well, I guess we'll find out. One more thing I'll add to that is this is a company, knowing their executives pretty well, they take things personally. And there's a lot of companies who do not listen to cybersecurity experts when they tell them, if you find out the source of the attack and it is within your power to pursue them legally, you need to do so. This is a company that will do that. Mm-hmm. So I hope that they set a standard for being the type of freight forwarding company that says, we will not be a victim. We will not take this lying down. If it is possible for us to pursue some type of remedy for what happened to us, we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. And I hope that that's the case with EI. It would be a really good story if an American company stepped up and decided to swing back.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's flip it over to halftime. That's always the fun, most entertaining or most depressing. I'm not sure which it is, but we always bring it. So I'll chime in. And this is, since it's President's Day, they say on podcasts, you're never supposed to say things, mention the weather, or be time specific because it could be dated and then it doesn't look spot on. And your dog is now working its way down the stairs again. So
there comes Lucy.
Yes. She's working it.
Go, Lucy, go.
Awesome. So President's Weekend
13.
Or President's Day.
Yep.
Here's my take. I was doing some research and I wanted to have some fun stats. But then I realized that there's one president that I'm going to have to call out that I think is the most badass president that's ever been around. And it's Teddy Roosevelt. And I'm going to fire off a couple things because of that. Number one, I didn't know this, but he's the youngest president to hold office. He was 42 years old, 10 months, and 18 days. So JFK was the youngest to be elected, but by the time he got into office, he was older than Teddy Roosevelt. So 42 years old, and he's president. By the way, Biden is the oldest at 78. Secondly, Teddy was blind in his left eye because of a boxing match he got into. So that's stellar. I love that. So president is blind because he got in a fight. Are you kidding me? Love it. The other piece, Pete, for being out in Colorado is he was a huge proponent of the conservation movement and expanding national parks. And being out here in Colorado and having the beauty every single weekend when we head up to the mountains, totally appreciate that. And the last thing, which our viewers may not know, is that he really cleared the way for the building of the Panama Canal back when he got on board in the early 1900s. And I think the canal was finished like 1913, 1914. But if he wasn't there pushing for that agenda, we wouldn't have that amazing canal and impact that it has on the logistics community. So anyway, those four things, I think Teddy Roosevelt is a badass. He's my favorite president. There's my President's Day comments, Pete.
Yeah, it's one of my personal favorites too. I'm a big nerd, as you know, and I do love presidential history. When I saw that you put this up, I took some notes of my own I wanted to share with you. So President Washington had to borrow $600 to make it to his inauguration from his next door neighbor. He wasn't fond of carrying cash. When he got there, he gave the shortest speech in the history of all presidential speeches. It was 133 words. It took 2 minutes. Franklin Pierce, the only president from New Hampshire, live free or die, is also widely considered to be the least effective president we've ever had in this country. He was drunk for literally drunk for almost his entire term. He suffered a personal setback. I think it was his wife that died, and he was wasted the entire time. So he got drunk and ran a lady over with a horse while he was president, like riding a horse. Now, this may be one of the best ones. Calvin Coolidge, 30th president of the U.S., had someone rub Vaseline on his head every morning while he ate breakfast. And he also had 2 pet raccoons named Reuben and Rebecca. Come on, dude. And then my personal favorite, Thomas Jefferson wrote a list of his achievements before his death. He neglected to add that he was president of the United States because he didn't feel that was that difficult a thing to achieve. And lastly, Willard Howard Taft, who was the 27th president of the United States, got stuck in the bathtub on 8 different occasions in the White House. It happened so often that they had to make a bigger floor and actually, I don't know what you call it, like put extra cement underneath it and put in a bigger bathtub because he actually broke the bathtub and it fell through the floor at one point. So that's some of my favorite presidential ones. But on halftime.
Yes.
I just got back yesterday from the first half of my Mardi Gras with my daughter. It was magnificent. I got to go, quote unquote, ghost hunting on Saturday night, where we went to a very creepy place. It was the site of a very famous murder in New Orleans, and we got to use all the Zach Bagans ghost hunting crap, of which I do not at all believe in any of it. But my daughter thinks it's fantastic. Not a ghost believer, Doug. I have no faith in any of that crap, but she loved it. It did scare the tar out of both of us, but she did enjoy a great deal of that. But I realized that most people have never been to Mardi Gras. I loved it. I ride on Saturday for the crew of Endymion. Very excited. I ride every year with my friends and I. For those of you who are not aware, Mardi Gras is it's mostly known where people think that we go out there and we throw beads at girls with their shirts off. That is absolutely 99% not the case. Most of what Mardi Gras is about, it's a family tradition. It's where family and friends come on the streets. It's kids everywhere. And we're throwing not just beads. So an example of that is these are drink trays like you would have at a bar from the crew of Pontchartrain that I caught this past weekend with my daughter. I have a number of other crazy things that I got. But really, it was about going through the city and giving them a parade before the dark days of Lent came and showing love to the whole city. It is a beautiful, wonderful, exciting, amazing time to be in one of the great cities in America. And if you go to New Orleans, I hope you see the Mardi Gras. And I do hope that all of you have a chance to come to one of America's most vibrant, culturally exciting, diverse, most wonderful cities. And I can't wait to get back on that plane and head back down there, Doug.
Good. All right. Who goes next, me or you?
You, buddy.
All right. Get my take on this thing.
I'm telling you, that Tegrity weed, man. You got to get off of that Tegrity weed, buddy.
Now, I was trying to think of some snarky comment to say about Mardi Gras, and I just couldn't think of a good one, so I figured.
Hey, listen, Kansas. All right, our big traditions aren't like pancake breakfasts and who grew the tallest corn this year. Mm-hmm. Right? There's actually culture in that
Yeah.
part of the world. Our idea of spicing our food is not salt and pepper.
Yeah.
All right, get over yourself.
Yeah.
Make the second topic.
A heavy steak and lots of ranch dressing on your iceberg lettuce. That's what I've been used to growing up.
2 Budweiser heavies and some Sanka.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so disgusting.
I haven't heard that word in a while.
I've been on a diet for over a year. I wouldn't even eat that. Go ahead, sir.
Man. So my second topic, and you and I have talked about, it seems like organized crime and some references, but I just read this one this weekend, and it made me think of the mafia. And so bear with me on this. So I don't know if you've ever heard this term, the PayPal mafia. You ever heard of that term?
Yes.
Okay. So some of our listeners that may not know that is the core founders of PayPal. And when they left PayPal after it was sold, the amazing companies that core group of people started up and had impact on our lives on that front. So obviously Tesla, because Musk was part of that. Then SpaceX, but LinkedIn, YouTube, Yelp, all those things were created and started by former PayPal employees. So the whole concept of this PayPal mafia. Specific to logistics and transportation, have you ever heard of the term the global trans mafia?
No.
So that's kind of the equivalent of a group of guys that started Global Trans down in Phoenix, Arizona. So out of that group was an IT group company called 10-4 Systems. Project 44 is probably the most recognizable success story out of that group. Carrier Direct, My Carrier, TMS, and then Stream Logistics. So again, it's all these amazing minds that come together, whether it's at PayPal or Global Trans, and then the proliferation that they have in their respective industries. So there's a new one that's going to come out, Pete, and this has a point. It's going to be the Tesla mafia. So I guess that would make Elon Musk the dawn of all dawns. But what the reason I said that is there's this company out there called Redwood Materials, which was started by the former CTO, Chief Technology Officer. And they are all about recycling batteries specific to electric vehicles. Well, not specific right now, but that's their goal. And they just signed some partnerships with Ford and Volvo. And that got me thinking that there's going to be this whole logistics vertical market that's going to go around and develop into supporting electric vehicles and the explosion that industry is happening on all of us. And Pete, it kind of boils down to the concept of you can sell the picks and the shovels to a supporting industry. So what I mean by that, those are the tools and services an industry will use to produce the actual product, right? So you don't have to make the car, just provide services and technology around things that are needed to make the car. So this is the reverse logistics and the recycling of EV batteries. So I think the electric vehicle industry is going to spawn lots of companies. They're going to come out of well-known companies, primarily Tesla, in my opinion, that are going to grow. And then you run into all these supply chain and everything else, because PayPal and Global Trans were tech plays, whereas the electric vehicle is going to be more of assets and managing the movement of spent batteries or other type of services to go into build. So the automobile supply chain concept is really going to explode with electric vehicles and the recycling of the consumables that those cars are generating. So anyway, I don't know if it's going to be the Tesla mafia or whatever, but you're going to see some pretty cool stuff spawning from people that have learned from their time at Tesla.
Well, as an Italian American who comes from a family of mostly felons and accused felons, we never like to mix the terms waste management or recycling with mafia. So
fair enough.
Just starting with that. I think there's 2 points I'd make on this. Is much of the things that we've just talked about are closely aligned with traditional logistics and logistics infrastructure. You're talking about moving dangerous goods, moving dangerous waste, moving it in a way that is safe and secure to a place that's safe and secure. And we've been doing that for a very long time. I just don't think we've ever done it at this scale. And I don't think that we've done it in a way where there's a company that really needs this access to this thing, or companies that need access to this thing. it looks like, electric vehicles are winning. Unless something really crazy happens, they're going to be widely adopted by consumers over the course of the next couple of decades. And the point that you're making, that we've got to figure out what we're going to do with these batteries, is a real one. And we're going to have to come up with a way to use what we've already learned to deal with it until we can perfect it. And that leads me to my second point about it. What's been very troublesome when it comes to supply chains with these tech-driven companies is what I'm beginning to call the Moneyball syndrome of Logitech. And the Moneyball syndrome is simply put, if you've watched Moneyball, if you've spent a lot of time watching baseball, it doesn't seem to be as much carefree and fun and clowny as it was maybe when we were younger, because nerds have more or less taken over the sport. There's a lot of statistics people, statistically driven decisions that are being made. Starters play a couple of innings and then two other pitchers come in and then the closer comes in, or the middle reliever. It's all, you need to bunt the situation, but you're a power hitter, you need to bunt the situation. It's all statistically driven. It's a game that's being decided on how it's going to be played by a bunch of people who simply cannot play it. So a lot of well-meaning data-driven decisions are being made by people who've never actually done it. And whether it's digital forwarding, or whether it's Logitech companies, or whether it's these new high-tech corporations involved in life sciences, aerospace, you name it. What I'm seeing over and over again is a desire to shake up the paradigm, change everything. When in reality, Bud, the best thing they could do is probably use the existing processes and infrastructures with great regularity, learn how it's done, and then make it more efficient, and then make it better, instead of trying to bend the will of an industry that's already perfectly fine with their needs. I worry about that with this particular issue.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. All right, bring us home, my man.
So, we were talking before we started today. I'm leaving Mardi Gras directly to go to the TPM, which is starting again after a 2-year hiatus. And I'm super excited to go. The CEO of the old day job will be there giving a speech. I've given a main stage speech before. It can be pretty, even for me, a little bit intimidating when the CEO of every major ocean carrier and freight forwarder is in the room, and you're an opinionated loudmouth like me. The TPM is a place where people stake their claim, and they make pronouncements and announcements, where big mergers and acquisitions happen, where secrets are shared, where big deals happen, or at least they used to. And the coronavirus happens, the pandemic happens, and for 2 years we don't have that forum. We don't have that ability as an industry to get together, get face-to-face, and have conversations in a meaningful way. Doug, you've been in sales for most of your career, and so have I. We both know it's extremely important to make a connection with somebody. And it's important to be able to have those conversations that just aren't across a Zoom call. If this could be any less intimate, be uncomfortable, even more awkward than these conversations already are right now. So I don't think we've ever needed the TPM more than we need it now. An opportunity for I think Lucy disagreed with me, for port directors, ocean carriers, freight forwarders, and their consumers to get together and really share ideas, to have disagreements, to hash things out, to talk about what's probably going to happen, and to talk about what just did happen and try to learn from it. It's time that we all got back together again and had conversations, had real conversations. We really, really need TPM. Unfortunately, I was asked today what TPM stood for, and I could only speculate. I've been going for a long time, buddy. I don't know what TPM means. I think it's the Trans-Pacific something or other. I don't know. But what I can tell you is it's the big trade show for all of us that are involved in international trade. It hasn't happened in years, and a whole bunch of us will be in Long Beach in a few weeks. And I'm pretty excited for it, Doug. I think it's going to be sort of the reopening of our industry, if you will, and maybe the first real step towards us getting our heads back in the game and trying to figure out how we're going to fix this thing.
Yeah. Trans-Pacific Maritime Conference.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Maritime, throw that in there. Anytime you see M with supply chain, like, it's probably maritime. So Pete, take on that. I looked up whenever you made mention of that a little bit earlier. The theme of the event goes right in what you just said. The theme of their event is relationships matter. and the in-person's absolutely huge. And I'm envisioning this. So Pete, next week or when you come back after this, you're gonna have to give me and give our audience a take. I'm picturing like walking the red carpet, right? So like it's gonna be the who's who in trans-Pacific and global container shipping, right? So you're gonna have all these Europeans coming in all tricked out, and they're gonna walk the red carpet, best dressed, most outrageous outfit, who has ageless style. So it's gonna be like a who's who in the industry. They haven't gotten together face to face in 2 years, and there's going to be a lot of cool stuff talked about. And I think there's going to be very tangible things that are going to emerge from this, which you made mention of. That's going to be a fun place to be for a couple of days out there. Hasn't happened. And oh, by the way, in any logistics conference I've ever been to that has international flavor is the amount of after hours partying and invitement is just off the hook. I was about to say off the chain, but that's like an old man statement. But there's going to be some serious partying going on, my friend.
Hey, Doug, I said I'm not sure what I'm more concerned with for my liver coming off a week and a half of Mardi Gras or 2 days at TPM, because I think that the level of bad decisions is actually pretty much equal across the board. Yeah. But luckily, I go into, I think this year it's like 52 days of sobriety for Lent, so I'll have time to clean myself out when that's all over and done with.
Nice.
But Doug, I mean, we're pretty excited. We're going to have a live event in a few months here where we're actually going to be out and about, live and in person around people.
Yeah,
pretty fired up for that.
We'll have to strategize on what that looks like, but it'll be fun. Of all the, I don't even know how many episodes we've done. You know, the problem is people that have podcasts, episode 97, episode 115, I don't even know. So we can just make up a number and go from there. But,
we should start doing that, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank our audience for listening to us. Hopefully you learned a few things. Hopefully we made you say, that's interesting, and didn't laugh too much or make fun of us, but we have good content. And obviously the content wouldn't be here if Cap Logistics wasn't behind the scenes pulling the buttons or pushing the buttons and pulling the levers. So we want to thank Keenan and Cap Logistics. And my gosh, 2 amazing travel experiences, Pete, you got coming up. I'll be hanging out at home doing absolutely nothing. So I think our stories will be a little bit different here in a couple of weeks.
4, actually. So leave Mardi Gras, go to TPM, leave TPM on Wednesday to go speak at the South Carolina Automotive Conference, which is where I went after our podcast when we were talking about coronavirus and everyone thought we were stupid. And I got up on stage at the South Carolina Automotive Conference in, I think it was March 13th. And I said, we're about to have a global economic shutdown. And they laughed and laughed and laughed. So I'm looking forward to going back on stage and saying, who's laughing now? And then I will be in Austin for the Health Distribution Alliance conference, where I'll be speaking primarily on the challenges to the supply chain post-pandemic that will be on e-commerce. So that's 4. Nice. Then I'm not speaking again until June, when I've been asked by The Economist magazine to speak in jolly old England. I'll be in London, I think the week of the 25th of June. So.
Nice, getting back on the road, getting in the saddle. It's nice.
No, I'm done with that life, buddy.
Yeah. Well, while you're zipping around, we'll still be sure to have the show every single week, coming to you live, and I enjoy it. Pete, always fun. It's great to meet your dog. What was her name again?
Lucy.
Lucy. Yeah. Good to meet Lucy. Good to have some nice banter with you and always learn. So thank you. Thank our audience for listening, and we'll see you next week on Global Trade This Week. Take care, Pete.
Happy Mardi Gras. See you.